I have dedicated my professional career to the study and control of arthropods.
Alright, I'm going to apologize in advance because this video is going to be somewhat disconnected and rambling. It may be extraordinarily long. It may be several parts. I don't know. I know it's going to be at least 2. And it's going to piss off a lot of people because I'm going to be kind of kicking at a sacred cow here. And I apologize for that as well. And again, you know, what can I say? But I am going to talk about Stephen Jay Gould, popular science, and its fans. Specifically Stephen Jay Gould fans. And the reason I want to bring this up is that recently on Sumitoshi 24's video on To Varioblast on the Natural History of Rape, a book by Randy Thornhill and Palmer, I made a comment responding to Sumitoshi saying that, you know, that the book's not as wrong as he paints it out to be, that you know, that the consensus isn't as against Thornhill, nor is he, you know, he's got a lot of credibility. He really does. To be honest, the reason I know Randy Thornhill, because first of all, he was really good friends with one of my committee members in my first graduate, when I was first attending graduate school. And he was not co-advisor isn't the right word, but he was sort of it was almost the advisor, but not quite the advisor of one of the students that worked in my lab. So he was in our lab all the time. And so we had lots of time to chat, saw lots of his talks, got to know the guy. And he's really quite an amazing guy. And I don't say I'm agreeing with everything I'm in no way in 100% agreement with him. I'm just saying he's a pretty neat guy. And so to see him kind of bashed at, first of all, makes me a little defensive because the guy's humble and he's pretty much the first person to admit that he's wrong on something. I mean, he's not dogmatic in the slightest bit. So to see him say he's not even a real scientist or he's not a good scientist and stuff kind of ticks me off. But that's an aside. The point is that I made a comment. Just, you know, I wasn't rude or anything about it. I just made a comment, and another user, George, countered me, and as now this is erupted into a long, practically an entire page of comments back and forth, where he said some pretty outrageous things. I like to believe, maybe I'm biased, that I have conducted myself professionally in this discussion, although I did get a little irritated. But regarding the, you know, he just said something, you know, he kept accusing me of saying things that I had never said whatsoever. It just really, you know, the point is that I don't think that this guy's read the book in question, even though he claims to have read most of it. The fact is that every single one of his criticisms are out of the 10 sites that Sumitoshi gave, the abstracts of those. So I think he read the abstracts of those and is attacking it rather than having read the original and is attacking it from that. But that's maybe I'm wrong. Either way, I don't like people putting words in my mouth. I don't like people assuming that I'm stupid when they don't know anything about, you know, somebody telling me I'm stupid and then misrepresenting the fundamental argument. Well, who knows? But that's rambling aside this crap. Anyways, in another comment to somebody he makes, he talks about this genetic thing, and about he makes the mention that even Gould and Lewontin called this geneticism, and, you know, whatever. In other words, the idea that genes can control behavior, sociobiology. If you know, Stephen Jay Gould was a big opponent of sociobiology, amongst other things. And you know, if you know, him and Richard Dawkins have had a thing going before he passed away. For Gould passed away, not Dawkins. And so Stephen, okay, the thing is with it is that right there, as soon as I saw that Gould reference, as soon as I saw him citing Gould on it, you know, immediately I was just like, oh, that's who I'm dealing with. And I don't mean that any disrespect, because I like Gould as well, okay? Not as much as I used to. I used to be a Gould fanatic, and then I met the guy, and he was he was an asshole, and I'm not conflating the person with his work. Some of his work is exceptional, is amazing stuff. His work on allometry, his work on tempo and pace of evolution stuff is great. Some of his other things, well, not so great. But the whole meeting him and that's an aside. Forget it. I'm not going to get into that. Maybe I will if I get into this more. But anyway, but the point of it is that citing Stephen Jay Gould in a critique of genetics and genes, Stephen Jay Gould was not a geneticist. Okay, never worked, never published a thing on genetics. Okay, didn't mentor any students that published work on genetics. All right, doesn't mean he was ignorant of the field, but he wasn't a geneticist. Okay, Richard Dawkins is a geneticist, so that right there is one thing. But to go into this whole to use this now, what it showed me though, the most important thing it showed me is that it's using popular science. It's using an article from essentially a pop science writer writing outside of his field as support against a concept. It's kind of like this is a real world example. Way back when on EVC forum there was a discussion with a quasi creationist talking to a actual tenured physics professor, and this quasi creationist said something like, you don't know anything about physics, obviously. Hawking clearly states, and he had something, and the physics professor wrote back going, you're citing from a pop science book that's certainly by no means cutting edge theoretical physics, right? And the guy's like, you just don't understand it. And he's like, it's, whatever. The point is that this person's he's taking somebody who's actually researching in the field, doing real world research in physics, and trying to oppose him with a poorly understood rendition of Stephen Hawking's book. Okay, you see what I'm the point there? Not knocking Stephen Hawking or anything like that, but just stating that it doesn't compare. Likewise, whenever people jump to counter some comment I make using Gould, it immediately I immediately right there, without knowing anything else about the person or their background, I'm suspicious, because Gould wrote a lot of great stuff. Gould also wrote a huge amount of absolute and total bullshit. Wonderful Life, bullshit. Okay, this book is so wrong that it's hard to find what's right in it. Okay, it's just full of shit. It pissed off some of the people that even are featured in the book. Pissed them off because it misrepresented their viewpoint completely. That's the kind of thing. Now, sorry, I'll just show real quick. These are some of the Gould books that I've accumulated just in unpacking, stacking them here for this video. I've read pretty much everything Gould has written. Okay, so let's see where I can go with this here. I'm gonna go into some more here in just a bit. I'm probably gonna make a part 2. I'll make a part 2. So I just want to finish. When before I started graduate school, I used to be a huge, what they use the term fanboy. I don't know if that's an accurate term. I love Stephen Jay Gould. Everything he wrote, I ate it up. I ate it up, and I discussed it with people, and for whatever reason, I thought it made me smart. Because I hadn't heard any opposition to it. And what happened is then I got into graduate school, and I was in a class, it was evolutionary ecology, and there was this discussion groups. We had to form, basically debates where students would take opposing papers on concepts and argue them. And the teacher asked if anybody wanted to take on the Gould side of this issue. And, of course, everybody, this class full of students, PhD students, were like, no fucking way, man. And I was like, hey, I'll take Gould's side, man. I'll rip you guys a new one with Gould. Short long story short, I got my ass kicked. I was humiliated beyond all belief. I was, making these claims about Gould and having them countered going, yeah, he said that. Where's that data published? Meaning he just would make assertions and no support for these assertions and this kind of stuff. And I was just like, holy crap, I had no idea how unserious this guy is taken in actual evolutionary biological fields. I had this idea, my perspective was that he was like loved by everybody, that he was like the, sort of the leader of this group. And he simply wasn't. All right, I'll see you guys in part 2.